agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of Angola, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Rwanda to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of Agenda Item 2. Members of the Council have before them document S/2025/108, the text of a draft resolution submitted by France. The Council is ready to proceed to vote on the draft resolution before it. I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2025/108, please raise their hand. The result of the vote is as follows. The draft resolution received 15 votes in favor. The draft resolution has been adopted unanimously as Resolution 2773/2025. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make a statement after the vote. I give the floor to the representative of France.
Mr. President, France wishes to thank the members of the Security Council for their commitment during the negotiations on this resolution over the past week. This delivers a clear message. There is no military solution to the conflict in the east of the DRC. The offensive carried out by the M23 supported by Rwanda must be put to an end. The priority is to reach an effective, unconditional, and immediate ceasefire agreement. A restoration of dialogue is urgent, with support from mediation at the regional level. The sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC need to be respected. The Rwandan forces must, without delay, withdraw from Congolese territory, as has already been declared by the United Nations Secretary General, as well as the members of this Security Council. MONUSCO needs to be able to carry out its mandate for the benefit of the civilian population without being obstructed in its efforts nor freedom of movement. This resolution recalls the clear role of the Luanda and Nairobi processes with a view to reaching a sustainable political solution hinging on the complete withdrawal of Rwandan forces and the dismantling of the FDLR. Mr. President, with nearly 1 million displaced persons and thousands of dead and horrific atrocities having been perpetrated, civilian populations are paying a heavy price following the escalation of this conflict, which has been protracted. We have been observing a conflict, and the risk is that this may spill over into a regional conflagration. There is a need for the Council to speak clearly, to facilitate cessation of hostilities for de-escalation alongside regional initiatives which France supports. A number of regions in the country on Wednesday spoke out in favor of this call. To conclude, I welcome the fact that the Security Council has risen to its responsibility, and I wish to take this opportunity to thank you.
I thank France. I give the floor to Algeria.
Thank you, Mr. President. Algeria has voted in favor of the draft resolution on the situation in the eastern DRC. We thank the pen holders for their efforts and thank the Council members for the consensus achieved. My delegation participated in the consensus while delivering observations on certain provisions during the negotiations. Mr. President, Algeria expresses its deep concern for the situation in the eastern DRC. And we call for the end of the hostilities and de-escalation in the provinces of North Kivu and South Kivu, and restoring stability, in particular in Goma and Bukavu.
النداء إلى كافة الأطراف المتنازعة بغية وقف فوري لإطلاق النار والعودة لطاولة المفاوضات في إطار مسارات التفاوض التي أقرها الاتحاد الإفريقي، وذلك حقنا لدماء المدنيين ومنع استفحال النزاع على المستوى الإقليمي. وفي هذا السياق ترحب بلادي أيما ترحيب ببيان مجلس السلم والأمن التابع للاتحاد الإفريقي يوم 14 فبراير 2025، والذي أكد بما لا يدع الشك أن الحل السياسي هو السبيل الوحيد لفض النزاع في الكونغو الديمقراطية ومنطقة البحيرات الكبرى، وذلك في إطار مساري لواندا ونيروبي اللذين تقرر دمجهما مؤخرا بناء على توصيات اجتماع قادة مجموعة شرق إفريقيا والمجموعة الاقتصادية لإفريقيا الجنوبية، حرصا على معالجة متناسقة وواقعية لهذا النزاع ولأسبابه الكامنة، واتساقا ومبدأ الحلول الإفريقية للمشاكل الإفريقية الذي نتمسك به كأفارقة غيورين على قارتهم. السيد الرئيس، تشاطر بلادي انشغال الأمم المتحدة والأسرة الدولية القلق إزاء تدهور الأوضاع الإنسانية بشرق جمهورية الكونغو الديمقراطية، مع تزايد حصيلة القتلى التي ناهزت 3000 قتيل منذ مطلع الشهر الفارط، والارتفاع غير المسبوق في عدد النازحين داخليا والذي قارب نصف مليون نازح، ناهيك عن تفشي الأمراض والأوبئة الناجمة عن تعفن الجثث وانعدام أدنى شروط النظافة والرعاية الصحية. وفي هذا الصدد تدعو بلادي كافة الأطراف المتحاربة إلى تسهيل تدفق وصول المساعدات الإنسانية إلى السكان المتضررين، وفتح الممرات الإنسانية والمطارات لتسهيل جهود الإغاثة الأممية والدولية والتخفيف من وطأة هذه الأزمة على السكان في هذه المنطقة المنكوبة. السيد الرئيس، تدعو الجزائر جميع أطراف النزاع إلى انتهاج الحوار وإبداء حسن النية لمعالجة المشاكل العالقة، بعيدا عن القدح والذم وكيل الاتهامات ومنطق المواجهة، وذلك بغية التوصل لحل دائم وعادل وشامل للنزاع يحفظ لجمهورية الكونغو الديمقراطية سيادتها ووحدتها الترابية، ويراعي المشاغل الأمنية المشروعة لجيرانها في المنطقة. كما وندعو كافة الأطراف الأجنبية من خارج القارة إلى الكف عن التدخلات السلبية والتخلي عن سياسة تثبيت مناطق النفوذ والمحاور، والنابع بعضها عن أوهام استعمارية غابرة، والتي من شأنها تقويض جهود الوساطة التي يقوم بها الاتحاد الإفريقي والمنظمات الجهوية المنخرطة في هذا الشأن. وفي الأخير تجدد الجزائر استعدادها لبذل أي جهد صادق يصب في خدمة خفض التوترات في منطقة البحيرات الكبرى وإعادة بناء الثقة بين مختلف الأطراف من أجل مستقبل أفضل لكل شعوب هذه المنطقة التي وعلى غرار كافة شعوب قارتنا تتوق للسلام والعيش الكريم، وأن تكون الثروات الطبيعية الهائلة التي تزخر بها منطقتهم نعمة عليهم ودافعا
resources that they have been blessed with. They also aspire to cooperate against the looting attempts and plundering attempts by any actor, whoever they may be. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to Sierra Leone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Sierra Leone thanks France for its efforts leading to the adoption of Resolution 2773. We have voted in favor of today's resolution on the situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in line with our firm commitments to African-led solutions, regional peace efforts, and the pursuit of dialogue as the only sustainable pathway to lasting stability in Eastern DRC. Our vote also took into consideration the United Nations Charter principles and the mandate of the UN Security Council, including in supporting regional arrangement in pursuit of peace and stability. The resolution underscores the urgent need for a cessation of hostilities, the withdrawal of all uninvited foreign forces, and renewed engagement in diplomatic dialogue through the merged Luanda and Nairobi processes. It affirms our shared belief that there is no military solution to the conflict and that the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the unity of DRC must be upheld. Sierra Leone welcomes the strong support for regional initiatives led by the African Union, the East African Community, the Economic Community of Central African States, the International Conference on the Great Lakes Region, and the Southern African Development Community. These efforts reflect the principle that African challenges require African leadership and solutions, with the support of the international community. We strongly condemn the ongoing hostilities and remain deeply concerned by the humanitarian crisis, forced displacement, and the suffering of civilians, including reports of human rights abuses and sexual and gender-based violence. We reaffirm our full support for MONUSCO and SAMI DRC in fulfilling their mandates to protect civilians and restore peace. The illegal exploitation of natural resources remain a key driver of instability in the region. We call for greater accountability, transparency, and adherence to international frameworks to prevent the financing of armed groups through illicit mineral trade. Sierra Leone urges all parties, particularly the governments of the DRC and Rwanda, to recommit to diplomatic dialogue and fully implement their agreed commitment. We emphasize the need for coordinated and harmonized mediation efforts under His Excellency President João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço of Angola, Chairperson of the African Union, and former President Uhuru Kenyatta, to advance a credible political solution to the crisis. Mr. President, for 11 years, Sierra Leone experienced a tragic civil war that accounted for more than 50,000 lives. As in the case of Congo, this Council authorized a peacekeeping mission, including the first protection of civilian mandate. Our path to ending the decade-long cycle of violence was not easy. At some point, we realized that our conflict will not end through decisive military victories, and that dialogue and negotiation is the only viable path to lasting peace. We had to talk with each other in good faith and commit to signing a peace agreement with the necessary political will. Talking to adversaries is hard, perhaps a taboo for some, but we do not make peace with friends, but with adversaries. Like Sierra Leone, a similar roadmap is being offered as outlined in the harmonized plan under the Luanda process. The plan provides a solid basis for Rwanda to disengage its forces and for the DRC to neutralize the FDLR. We urge Council members as well as the broader international community to meaningfully support this African-led initiative that will bring Rwanda and DRC to the negotiating table in good faith. In voting in favor of this resolution, Sierra Leone stands in solidarity with the people of the DRC and the broader region. We remain committed to supporting all efforts that advance peace, security, and sustainable development in line with the principles of the UN Charter and the aspirations of the African continent. Dialogue is a fundamental tool for conflict resolution. but its success depends on strong implementation and compliance mechanisms for agreed commitment, political will, and addressing root causes. As dialogue remains the key to long-term stability, Sierra Leone's peace process demonstrates that a well-structured peace agreement, backed by regional and international support, can transform a war-torn country, a lesson that can guide efforts to end the conflict in Eastern DRC. Sierra Leone will continue to engage constructively to ensure the full and effective implementation of this resolution. I thank you.
I thank Sierra Leone for the statement. I give the floor to the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, the Russian Federation voted in favor of the draft resolution submitted by France to the Security Council in connection with the deterioration of the situation in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This is an important resolution for all of us, first and foremost for the Congolese civilian population. This was adopted following a protracted compromise and many hours of protracted diplomatic work, both here in New York and during the summits of African leaders. This is a resolution in support of the Charter of the United Nations, the cornerstone for the modern-day system of international relations. This needs to be fulfilled by the parties without delay. The hostilities must be put to an end. Lives need to be saved. Ordinary people need to be able to return to their homes. In Rwanda and the DRC need to once again sit down at the negotiating table to reaffirm their mutual obligation, reach agreement on conditions for a sustained long-term resolution to all disagreement. This resolution also helps to build upon regional efforts and is geared first and foremost towards the parties reaching implementation in good faith and conscientiously implementation of measures which were agreed upon by the Africans at the highest level. Otherwise, the region will be faced with yet another brutal war with colossal human casualties. We need to draw lessons from the past and not repeat the errors of the past. Thank you.
I thank Russian Federation. I give the floor to the representative of the UK.
Thank you, President. The United Kingdom is grateful for the efforts of France as penholder and the engagement of all Council members to enable the adoption today of this important resolution. The UK welcomes and fully supports this text. We hope it makes a positive contribution to the diplomatic leadership in the region, especially the recent EAC-SADC summit, and helps bring an end to this conflict. UK ministers are engaging intensively to support a diplomatic end to the conflict because there is no military solution. President, the violations we have seen in recent weeks in Eastern DRC are wholly unacceptable. Today's resolution sends a clear message that these violations must stop and the parties must return to the African-led political processes. It makes clear that there needs to be a ceasefire and the withdrawal of M23 from Goma and Bukavu. We strongly urge M23 to immediately cease hostilities. No member states should impede this. It also makes clear that international humanitarian law must be respected, as must MONUSCO's mandate. And critically, it makes clear that DRC's sovereignty, territorial integrity, as well as the UN Charter, must be respected. The UK supports this resolution's call for all Rwandan defence forces to withdraw from Congolese territory. We urge the parties to fully abide by this resolution. Otherwise, this Council will need to consider further action. I thank you.
I thank the UK for the statement. I give the floor to Panama.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, President. We'd like to thank the delegation of France for presenting the draft resolution and for their efforts to reach consensus on the negotiations on the document. As we are discussing the matter here, the security situation in the east of the DRC remains extremely volatile and it continues to deteriorate rapidly. Panama reiterates its unwavering commitment to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC. With this resolution, we reiterate the collective call on the M23 and the Rwandan Defense Forces immediately to cease their advance and to completely withdraw from the area, fully respecting the ceasefire and the ongoing mediation process. Through our vote in favour of this resolution, we've also reaffirmed our support to the invaluable work of MINUSCO, whose commitment to peace and stability in the region cannot be called into question. We reiterate our support to the regional efforts to address this crisis, stressing that there can be no military solution here. We urge all parties to prioritize diplomacy and political commitment and to immediately resume negotiations and dialogue in the context of the Luanda and Nairobi processes. Thank you.
I thank Panama and give the floor to Pakistan.
Mr. President, for several weeks now, the situation in the Eastern DRC has been in a dangerous downward spiral with dire humanitarian consequences. This has set back seriously the efforts for peace and stability in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the progress made in that regard over the last many years with the support of the international community. The United Nations and this Council itself, including through the peacekeeping missions, have invested heavily for the success of this endeavor. We cannot afford a failure. We must not let everything unravel before our eyes. It was right for the Council to keep a close watch over the developments as manifested by a series of meetings in recent weeks. It was also logical for this Council to pronounce itself quickly and clearly to fulfill its responsibility to help restore peace and security in the Eastern DRC. Pakistan believes that the resolution we have just adopted is an important and necessary step towards that objective. We appreciate France for facilitating the discussions and welcome the consensus achieved. The resolution reaffirms Security Council's strong commitment to the sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity of the DRC and upholds the fundamental principles of the UN Charter. Most importantly, it welcomes and supports the regional efforts and processes and high-level engagements led by the African Union and other sub-regional organizations to bring peace to the DRC. We expect and call on all parties to cooperate and fully comply with the provisions of this resolution and their respective obligations in a genuine and timely manner, recognizing that there is no military solution. All parties, going forward, must prioritize dialogue and diplomacy and recommit to the peace and mediation processes in place. In conclusion, the Council must continue to accord the attention that this situation requires, and in that context, we must also review the role and mandate of MINUSCO to better correspond to the situation on ground. I thank you.
I thank Pakistan, and I give the floor to Guyana.
Thank you, Mr. President. Guyana welcomes the adoption of the resolution on the situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Council's firm response to the ongoing crisis in Eastern DRC. We thank France, the penholder, for their efforts in bringing us to this point. Guyana voted for the resolution with the hope that today's decision by the Security Council will provide positive momentum to the regional efforts to achieve a ceasefire, prevent any further escalations, and ultimately find a sustainable political solution to this decades-long conflict. We reiterate our demand for the M23 to cease hostilities and for Rwanda to withdraw its forces from the territory of the DRC. Likewise, we reiterate our call for the DRC to sever all ties with and neutralize the FDLR. We call upon both countries to urgently implement their commitments under the Luanda and Nairobi processes, abide by the decisions of the AU Peace and Security Council, and prioritize dialogue and the well-being of their citizens that would lead to peace and a final resolution to this conflict. Guyana further underscores the need for full respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC and reiterates its commitment to working with all Council members to address the ongoing crisis and mitigate the risk of a regional conflict. I thank you.
I thank Guyana for the statement, and I give the floor to the Republic of Korea.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Republic of Korea is pleased and encouraged that the Security Council was able to reach unity in decisively and unequivocally responding to the grave situation in Eastern DRC. We voted in favor of this resolution with a deep sense of urgency for an immediate ceasefire between all parties. My delegation commends the tireless efforts of France, the penholder, to bring the Council together over the past 2 weeks. The entire DRC is now at stake, and the situation literally stands on the brink of a full-scale regional war. There can be no military solution to this conflict. We urge the DRC and Rwanda to urgently return to meaningful diplomatic dialogue. The resolution we adopted today underscores and supports the efforts of the AU, EAC, and SADC in this regard. Africa's collective wisdom and concerted action are vital for restoring peace and stability in Eastern DRC. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the Republic of Korea for the statement, and I give the floor to Somalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. Somalia has voted in favor of this resolution today. In that regard, I would like to highlight the following points. My delegation shares the profound concern expressed by the Council members regarding the situation in the Eastern DRC. The deteriorating humanitarian and security conditions and its impact on the civilian population deeply trouble us all. We join the call for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire and cessation of hostilities, and the immediate withdrawal of all foreign forces and armed groups operating in DRC. Experience has taught us that the silencing guns in Africa does not begin with finger-pointing or attributing blames. We believe that sustainable solutions must emerge through inclusive dialogue and regional cooperation rather than through measures that might inadvertently complicate existing peace initiatives. As an African member of the Council, we are entrusted with the vital responsibility of bridging the perspective between this Council and the African common positions on matters concerning our continent. We note with appreciation the significant efforts of the African leadership. In particular, we commend the tireless diplomatic efforts of Angola under the leadership of President Lorenzo in steering the Luanda process and fostering dialogue between concerned parties. In this regard, the recent proposed convergence of the Nairobi and the Luanda processes represent a significant step forward in regional cooperation. We believe this harmonization of efforts created a more robust framework for peace in DRC. We must emphasize the significance of addressing the underlying cause of the conflict. Internal reconciliation and dialogue among all Congolese stakeholders are essential prerequisites for lasting peace in DRC. However, for these initiatives to succeed, they require a concrete support and a space to flourish. The leadership of EAC and SADC in their joint communique endorsed by the African Union Peace and Security Head of States and Governments has underscored the political dialogue and non-military approaches are the fundamental pillars for achieving lasting peace. The implementation of these commitments has already commenced. In particular, the Chiefs of Defense of the EAC member states have just concluded their deliberation on the security situation in eastern DRC, and their conclusion will inform the joint AEC and SADC meeting of the CDFs scheduled to take place in Dar es Salaam on the 24th of this month. Therefore, we believe the Security Council should extend a stronger support to these efforts and ensure that international engagement aligns with and reinforces the existing African-led initiatives. To conclude, the path to sustainable peace in DRC must be paved with a commitment to genuine dialogue, both within DRC and among the regional stakeholders. My delegation stands in steadfast solidarity with all people of the Democratic Republic of Congo. We remain unwavering in our respect for their sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the unity of the Democratic Republic of Congo. I thank you, Mr. President.
Okay.
I thank Somalia for the statement and give the floor to the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. And we thank France for its dedicated stewardship of this resolution, which accurately reflects the realities of the conflict in eastern DRC and takes an initial step toward promoting accountability for M23 and Rwandan advances. This week, the United States imposed sanctions on James Kabarebe, Rwanda's Minister of State for Regional Integration, and Lawrence Kanyuka Kingston, spokesperson for M23/AFC, as well as two of Kanyuka's companies. These actions underscore our intent to promote accountability for key officials who enable Rwanda's and M23's destabilizing activities and continued impunity for human rights abuses in eastern DRC. We applaud similar actions taken by other member states aimed at compelling Rwanda to return to the negotiating table and bring this violence to an end. We once again urge Council members to take urgent action on sanctions nominations in the 1533 Committee. The United States firmly supports African-led political processes aimed at resolving the conflict in eastern DRC. Regional actors have by far the most at stake when it comes to preventing an all-out war in the Great Lakes region. However, we must not let African-led processes preclude swift and strong responses by the Security Council. We must speak, and more importantly, act in a united manner if we are to advance solutions to this crisis. I thank you.
I thank the United States for their statement. Now I'd like to make a statement in my capacity as representative of China. Dear colleagues, since the start of the recent escalations in the eastern DRC, the weeks-long ongoing conflict has gripped the international community. After capturing Goma, the M23, in defiance of the international and regional calls for a ceasefire and in breach of its own unilateral ceasefire commitment, went on to take Bukavu and other places, causing further escalations in the eastern DRC and pushing up the risks of a wider regional conflict. The Security Council, in the just adopted resolution, demands that the M23 immediately cease hostilities and withdraw from the areas it's occupying. It's in line with the expectations of the international community in general and regional countries in particular vis-à-vis cessation of hostilities, and it is also an act of the Council to discharge its responsibility. That is why China voted in favor of the draft resolution, and we welcome the unanimous adoption of the resolution by the Council. Dear colleagues, the current situation in the eastern DRC is still worsening. China expects all the parties concerned to heed the calls of the international community and the Security Council by immediately ceasing all hostilities and refraining from any further action that may exacerbate tensions and bringing them to a head. China reiterates firm support for solving African issues the African way, and that Security Council resolutions should be designed to support regional processes, to build synergy with the mediation efforts at the regional level. All parties concerned must respond in good faith to regional peace initiatives and be committed to resolving differences through diplomacy and dialogue. The DRC and Rwanda are neighbors, and as such, their differences and tensions, we believe, are not irreconcilable. What truly matters is for both sides to show readiness to return to the negotiating table without delay. The Great Lakes region is at a critical juncture, and to stand on the side of peace is our shared responsibility. China firmly supports the DRC defending its sovereignty and territorial integrity and remains committed to working tirelessly with the rest of the international community until fighting stops and the situation is eased. Thank you. I resume my function as President of the Council. Now I give the floor to the representative of the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Merci,
Thank you, President. President, I won't read out the statement that I have prepared. Of course, as you know, the situation has accelerated somewhat and things have changed. But I would simply like to recall that the maintenance of international peace and security is a principle that underpins the bulk of the collective security system that was established by the founding fathers of the UN after the Second World War, such that any threat to peace, any breakdown of peace, or any act of aggression compels the Security Council to act without delay. The invasion by the RDF and their accomplices of the AFC and the M23 of Congolese provinces in the north and south Kivu, and the brutal seizure of Goma on the 27th of January led my government, who, through Her Excellency Ms. Therese Karekwamba Wagner, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, to address this Council on 3 occasions in the space of just 3 weeks. This shows the need for peace that the Democratic Republic of the Congo expects of this Security Council. What you have just done today is precisely what we were entitled to expect of the Council since the 26th of January. But 3 weeks had to elapse for the Council to speak unanimously about this subject. Now, this attitude was particularly dangerous because it prevented the Council from speaking out when the seriousness and the urgency of the situation obliged it to react swiftly and decisively. In this particular case, the Council's paralysis gave free rein to the illegal occupation of DRC territory by the Rwandan Defense Forces and their supporters in the AFC M23, in the knowledge that every further day of inaction compromises regional and international peace and security, only strengthens the aggressor, and undermines the United Nations' credibility. President, everybody knows the human cost. I won't remind you of it here. The horror that the people are living through in the eastern part of our country is well known to everybody. We have spoken about it more than 3 times here. But what I want to say today is that the Council took a lot of time to act, and to act unanimously. But now the Council has been able to move things forward. And therefore, on behalf of the government of the DRC, and on behalf of all of the boys and girls of the DRC, in particular those in Bunagana, in Kamanyola, including Goma, Sake, Minova, Nyabibwe, Kale, Kavumu, and Bukavu. On their behalf, I would like to thank all members of the Council, and especially the A3+1, for their precious contribution, without which this resolution would not have been unanimously adopted. To all of you, distinguished members of the Council, to the P5, and particularly to France, the penholder, to the United States as well, who initiated sanctions against the Rwandan authorities and the M23 authorities. To you all, we wish to express our heartfelt thanks. Our heartfelt wish is that this resolution be implemented immediately to give respite to the people of the DRC in the occupied areas. They are paying the highest price and bearing the brunt for this military adventure. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the DRC. I now give the floor to the representative of Rwanda.
Mr. President, thank you for giving the floor. I congratulate you again on your presidency and leadership of this council. Mr. President, just 48 hours ago, we gathered in this council to discuss the importance of supporting regional initiatives and the mechanisms designed to foster peace in Eastern DRC and our region. Rwanda takes note of the resolution. I want to thank the council members who have reached out to Rwanda to hear our views and commend those who met and listened to us. We wish to highlight our deep concern regarding the unprecedented intimidation of African voices within this esteemed council, particularly targeting A3 members. We condemn this behavior in the strongest terms. This speaks volumes about the DRC and its belief that the solution to their inter-Congolese conflict will come from actors from outside the continent. Rwanda acknowledges, commends, and is fully committed to the efforts of the African Union, the East African Community, and the Southern African Development Corporation. Mr. President, since the meeting on Wednesday, Rwanda is pleased to inform the Council that today, 21st February, the EAC Chiefs of Defense met in Nairobi as a follow-up on the outcome of the joint EAC SADC Summit outcome. On Monday, the 24th February, the Joint Chiefs of Defense of both the EAC and SADC will meet to draw a joint roadmap in line with the recommendation of the joint summit that was held in Dar es Salaam on 8th February. In this regard, we call on this Council to support these regional efforts and avoid being dragged into the risk of undermining regional efforts. Mr. President, for Rwanda, we believe any Council product on this matter should answer one simple question: how did we end up here? The international community see the signs that could lead to this situation. Is the Council answering the big question of how we ended up here and how to find a solution that addresses the root causes of this conflict? Those are the fundamental questions that we should be working to so that we can work towards addressing this conflict in its roots so that we can have sustainable peace. We believe that any outcome that doesn't take Rwanda's security concerns seriously will not offer a sustainable solution to the conflict. The security challenges posed by FDLR and its splinter groups are of very serious concern for Rwanda. DRC must be held accountable for its continued preservation of FDLR, embedding it in its army, equipping the FDLR with sophisticated weapons, and using it as an ally and a fighting force. Any outcome that ignores the legitimate concerns, the legitimate grievances of the Kinyarwanda-speaking Congolese, which are the root cause of the existence of M23, will also not help resolve the conflict. Mr. President, we are concerned that there is a single focus on M23 and total silence on the humongous humanitarian violations committed across many parts of DRC, including the massacres, rapes, and violation of rights by Codeco, in Ituri, ADF, and numerous other armed groups in the areas mentioned, Ituri, Beni, and South Kivu. The chaos on the streets of Kinshasa and the burning of embassies and foreign missions was only condemned in passing. The Council cannot be selective in its condemnation. The DRC conflict is complex, multifaceted, and the Council must address it comprehensively, working with all partners and stakeholders involved. Mr. President, Rwanda remains fully committed to the regional initiatives under the Rwanda-Nairobi process and will continue to meet its part of the bargain, playing a constructive role for the sake of sustainable peace, security, and stability in our region. We call upon DRC to heed the regional call, immediately return to the peace process, and commit to inclusive dialogue with state and non-state actors, armed or unarmed, including M23, as outlined in the EAC SADC outcome, which was endorsed by the AU Summit. I thank you, Mr. President.
I'd like to thank the representative of Rwanda for their statement, and I give the floor to Angola.
For giving us the floor. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, while we are here meeting for the fourth time in the last few days, the security and humanitarian situation in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, continues to deteriorating as the M23 widens its territorial control, more people are killed and displaced, and the risk of regional conflict is growing. In the meantime, regional organizations like the Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, the East African Community, EAC, separately and jointly, the Economic Community of Central Africa States, ECAS, as well as the Peace and Security Council of the African Union, have been unequivocally in calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire in the Eastern DRC and the resumption of negotiations and dialogue of all concerned parties under the Luanda and Nairobi process. There is no military solution to the DRC conflict, thus the diplomatic and political track has to be prioritized. We need to uphold and consolidate the deliverables of the Luanda process under the mediation of His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, President of Angola, namely the ceasefire agreement, the adoption of an harmonized plan to neutralize the FDLR under the responsibility of the DRC, and the disengagement of forces, lifting of defensive security measure plan under the responsibility of Rwanda, and the strengthening of the ad hoc verification mechanism by intelligence experts from the three countries, Angola, DRC, and Rwanda. These developments have created a new momentum and relevance to the Nairobi process, tasked to address the matter relating to different armed groups operating within DRC, including the issue of M23. The strict observance of the ceasefire agreed upon between the parties and the immediate cessation of all hostilities are paramount to creating a political environment conducive to a peaceful solution under the Luanda and Nairobi processes. Mr. President, we welcome the adoption of the draft resolution today, which represents a significant step in the right direction as it paves the way to achieve the collective outcome that all relevant actors and stakeholders in Africa and around the world have been calling for: the immediate cessation of hostilities, unconditional ceasefire, immediate and unconditional return to the negotiating table through the Luanda and Nairobi process, support of sub-regional and regional efforts and initiatives in the spirit of African solutions to African problems. This Council has the responsibility to assist the people and the government of the DRC to achieve these aspirations by acting swiftly and decisively to prevent further escalation of this conflict and promote its peaceful resolution. Any further delays to approve this draft resolution to support an African approach to this long and destructive conflict would have jeopardized the credibility of this Council in its primary responsibility under the United Nations Charter for the maintenance of international peace and security. We need to save lives and stop the bloodshed of innocent civilians, including elderly, women and children, and open viable corridors for unimpeded humanitarian assistance. We call on the international community and the Security Council to continue supporting the ongoing regional initiatives to enhance coordination, harmonization, and complementarity between the Luanda and the Nairobi processes to promote African-led solutions to African problems. We continue to value MONUSC as an important partner in our collective endeavor for peace and stability in the Eastern DRC. In his position as the chairperson of the African Union, His Excellency João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, President of the Republic of Angola, remains engaged in identifying the main problems affecting peace and security in Africa to contribute to conflict prevention, management, and resolution in Africa, with special emphasis and attention on what is unfolding in the Eastern DRC. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the representative of Angola. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.
Bakunzi ba radio Itahuka, twongeye kubasuhuza twizera ko aho muri hose mumeze neza kandi ko Imana ikomeje kuba mu ruhande rwanyu. Turagira ngo rero tubagezeho ubutumwa twagejejweho n'umukunzi wa radio Itahuka, yabuduhaye kuri audio ariko ntiyifuza ko amajwi ye tuyatangaza, adusaba ko twazareba uburyo twazahindura ubwo butumwa mu nyandiko hanyuma tukabusomera abakunzi ba radio Itahuka. Nicyo rero tugiye gukora, tukaza kubasomera uko yabuduhaye kuri audio, nta kintu duhinduyeho. Muri buze rero kwihanganira wenda rimwe na rimwe imvugo z'ikinyarwanda bamwe muri mwe mutamenyereye, ariko icy'ingenzi ngira ngo ni ubutumwa buri muri iyi nyandiko yaduhaye cyangwa se muri iyi audio yaduhaye. Ubwo rero tukaba tugira ngo dutangire tububagezaho. Atangira agira ati: nashatse kuvuga ngo tugende buhoro kugira ngo wandike, not in rush. Tugende buhoro kugira ngo usiguze. Okay, nanjye ndabona ndi tayari hano. Sasa ubwo CNDP yari maze kurangira, byabaye ngombwa ko haboneka ikindi kintu gishyashya, kuko ni ngombwa ko twicaraga twentimida Kabila, ni ngombwa ko twicaraga twentimida Kabila tumwereka yuko ibyo se atashyize mu masezerano tuzabishyira mu masezerano kubera imbaraga zacu. So twamwerekaga yuko natemera ibyo tumusaba, nibiba ngombwa twamwica nk'uko twishe se. Za CNDP, za M23, za ntambara za Mutebusi ahanini zari zishingiye kwereka Kabila. The 9,865th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation concerning the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of Angola, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Rwanda to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of Agenda Item 2. Members of the Council have before them document S/2025/108, the text of a draft resolution submitted by France. The Council is ready to proceed to vote on the draft resolution before it. I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2025/108 please raise their hand. The result of the vote is as follows. The draft resolution received 15 votes in favor. The draft resolution has been adopted unanimously as Resolution 2773/2025. I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make a statement after the vote. I give the floor to the representative of France.
Mr. President, France wishes to thank the members of the Security Council for their commitment during the negotiations on this resolution over the past week. This delivers a clear message. There is no military solution to the conflict in the east of the DRC. The offensive carried out by the M23 supported by Rwanda must be put to an end. The priority is to reach an effective, unconditional, and immediate ceasefire agreement. A restoration of dialogue is urgent, with support from mediation at the regional level. The sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC need to be respected. The Rwandan forces must, without delay, withdraw from Congolese territory, as has already
imbaraga zacu yuko ntaho twagiye yuko tutavuye muri Congo kandi urabona ko igihe cyose Kabila yashakaga kugira ngo biriya bibazo bihoshe bibe nk'ibijya hasi yabaga obligated yo kuza i Kigali. So abantu bari hejuru bari mu mutwe w'itegurwa rya M23 yari yafandi Kabarebe kuko ibijyanye na Congo byose niwe ubibazwa. Undi muntu bari babisangiye yari Jacques Nziza. Mu mwanya wa chef d'état major hari Charles Kayonga, ariko Charles Kayonga ntabishyigikire. Burya Charles Kayonga mu bintu yazize mu gukurwa muri uriya mwanya nuko yapingaga ikintu nka M23. Mu ruhande rwa Uganda, kugira ngo Uganda ibyakire twagombaga kubinyuza muri Kayihura akabyumvisha Museveni. Inyungu Uganda yari bifitemo kwari kugira ngo haboneke ikindi kibazo gishyashya muri Congo kibagiza amahanga dosiye barimo bararemera ku manyanga bakoze Gisangani n'umutungo Salimusare yibye muri Congo. Kuri Uganda yari M23 yarije ari nka distraction kugira ngo UN yerekeze amaso mu bindi bibazo ibe ibaretseho, kuko cya gihe Salimusare yari ameze nabi arimo akurikiranwa. So rero M23 igiye gutangira inama za mbere zabereye i Kigali kuko niho decision zituruka. Noneho biboneka ko umuntu ugomba gushingwa recruitment kuko ari we uziranye n'abasirikare bose ba Congo, iyo dosiye bayirekera Kabarebe. Mistake ya mbere Kabarebe yakoze yabahamagaraga kuri telefoni nkuko ndimo ndaguhamagara. UN iriya MONUSCO ikarikodinga akantu kose. Niyo mpamvu M23 imaze gufata Goma bahise bakata umunara wa MTN wakoraga muri North Kivu hafi ya yose. Ibyo nta wundi urabikubwira? Okay, bahise bakata, urumva ko MTN niyo yakoraga muri North Kivu. So Kabarebe mistake yakoze, yahamagaraga gutya bisanzwe akaganiriza umusirikare kugeza yumvishije yuko agomba kujoininga M23. Noneho UN MONUSCO igahita ibirecording. Noneho hariho position zibiri, hariho position ya South Kivu hariho Sultani Makenga yabarizwaga, hakaba na position ya North Kivu hariho Bosco Ntaganda yabarizwaga. Iriya position ya South Kivu na North Kivu zose zarazaga zigahurira mu kintu cyari cyararemwe cyitwaga ngo Amani Leo. Rero muri Amani Leo niho ziriya forces zose zarwanyaga leta binyuze muri Makenga na Delphin Kahimbi. Baragendaga bakajya kuganiriza ziriya forces zose zirwanya leta, bakaza muri Amani Leo mbere yuko baba integrated, bakazabona kujya muri FRDC isanzwe. Rero iyo Amani Leo yari kuriwe na Bosco Ntaganda, ibiro byiwe biri muri North Kivu. Nagiye mu itangiriro kugira ngo uze kunyumva neza, kuko hari igihe nasimba ibintu bimwe bigatuma n'ibyo nashakaga kukubwira bidashyika neza. So noneho rero South Kivu hari Sultani Makenga. Kabarebe akavugana na Sultani Makenga amushinga recruitment kuzashyira abasirikare standby kugira ngo bazarase bapasuye berekeze muri North Kivu, kuko urugamba rwari rutanzwe. Noneho haboneka ikibazo gikomeye muri South Kivu. Makenga yarari mu kago, akaba asangiye ubukago n'uwitwa ngo ni Masunzu. Noneho Masunzu niwe wari komanda wa Sud Kivu yose, niwe wari ukuriye akarere ka Sud Kivu. Urumva bari muri department zibiri zitandukanye. Sultani Makenga yarari muri Amani Leo, Masunzu yarari muri government isanzwe, yarari muri FRDC. Urumva bari bafitanye collaboration, ariko uwadutuyingaga yari Masunzu. Noneho haboneka ikibazo. Makenga niwe wari ufite force, abasirikare bo muri SNDP ba Colonel Bernard nibo bari badeployinze Uvira. Abo ba Colonel Chabani nibo bari badeployinze za Baraka utambutse Uvira. So ahantu henshi abasirikare bavuye muri SNDP nibo bari badeployinze ahantu henshi. So Masunzu niwe wari mukuru, ariko force zari zifite akarere zari force za SNDP. Ariko Masunzu nawe yari yakoze akazi neza, agenda abavangavanga, agashyiramo abiwe, agafata aho yashyize babiri biwe agashyiramo umwe wa SNDP, ahari babiri ba SNDP agashyiramo umwe wiwe, arabavangavanga ntiyareka yegerana nabo. Noneho ikibazo cyahabaye, hakaba ikibazo cyo kuvuga ngo hakaba ikibazo cy'umutwe w'abanyamurenge witwa ngo Gumino original, Gumino atariyo urimo urabona y'ubu ngubu. Original Gumino yari irimo ba Vena Bisogo, abitwa ba Michel Makanika, abitwa ngo ni Willy Byondo, yari irimo ibihangange. Noneho rero ikibazo kirahaba, ba Makenga bakabwira Kabarebe bati ese turapasuwa tujye muri North Kivu, abanyamurenge bene wacu bo turajyana cyangwa ntitujyana? Kabarebe arababwira ati mwebwe ni inshingano zanyu zo kugira ngo mujyane. Bagombaga gupasuwa intambara igahera i Masisi. Noneho rero cyagihe icyo kibazo kiraho ngaho, amanama akabera Bukavu, kuko niho Makenga yarari. Bisogo niho yarari ategereje akazi muri Amani Leo. Makanika kera bamuhaye akazi muri Amani Leo bavuye mu Bijabo. Noneho ikibazo cyahabaye, abanyamurenge Bisogo na Makanika, ariko cyane cyane Makanika bati M23 turayumva, intambara murimo muratangiza turayumva, ariko conditions reka tubereke ukuntu ibintu bimeze. Mureke twebwe turi muri South Kivu turase, dukabe Uvira, dukontrole Baraka, dukontrole Fizi, dukontrole na Minembwe. Bosco Ntaganda nawe na forces zindi zose, ari ama-regiment, ari amasekiteri muri North Kivu, nabo bakontrole muri North Kivu. none se bimaze iki kuvuga ngo tugende twese tuve hano tujye muri Nord Kivu, nitugerayo tuzarase dusubire kandi dupasuwe tuze gufata South Kivu? Icyaba cyiza nuko Ntaganda yarasa Nord Kivu akayikaba, natwe tukarasa South Kivu tukayikaba. Icyo gitekerezo Makenga akacyumva, twaba turi mu nama agasohoka akajya kuri telefoni agahamagara Kabarebe akamubwira ati ariko wabaye gute? Force zose ziri Nord Kivu na South Kivu ni force zavuye muri CNDP, ni force zawe, ni force za Ntaganda. Ubwo buhungu bw'ubunyamurenge bungahe urumva ari iki bwahungabanyaho ukuvuga ngo ntimukazapasuwe? Kubera iki ibyo bintu ubwo buhungu bw'ubunyamurenge bukubwira budafite za force urimo urabitegera? Ibibazo biba biratangiye rero, noneho abanyamurenge bakavuga bati nidupasuwa tukajya muri Nord Kivu tuzashyika abana b'Imasisi badusuzugure, abana b'Imasisi baturute mu gisirikare, abana b'Imasisi aba ari bo biharira imyanya yose, twebwe tuzaba imbwa tube kuri front line, twebwe ntacyo tuzageraho. Icyaba cyiza nuko twebwe twakwemera tugafatikanya na Masunzu na government kuzarasa M23 igiye kuzarasa M23 igiye kuvuka. Noneho Makenga akabwira Kabarebe ati nyamara ibi bintu babaye bavuga nibyo, wowe reka njyewe ndakomeza mbe mukuru, ariko reka turase dusubira Uvira na Baraka na Minembwe, ni njyewe ukomeza kuba mukuru, baraba munsi yanjye, kandi bose ni Abatutsi, ni abana b'iwacu, nta kuntu bavuga ngo bararema kuri izi force mfite bankurire. Ariko tureke ikintu cyo kuvuga ngo twese tujye guhuriza imbaraga ahantu hamwe. Icyiza nyine nuko twagabura abari Nord Kivu bakarasa Nord Kivu, abari South Kivu bakarasa South Kivu. Kabarebe uzira kugendesha inama na bagenzi be aravuga ngo abo banyamurenge barimo baraguhereza iyo briefing nta mbaraga bafite, ntibashobora kuvuga ngo bahindure program yacu. Program ni yindi, wowe urarasa werekeza Nord Kivu, force ziri Baraka ziri Fizi zirarasa zize Uvira, zive Uvira zipasuwe ni Bukavu. Ariko ako Kamasunzu niba mukarasa, niba kurira indege kagahungira muri MONUSCO muri UN, nimba gahungira Kinshasa, ibyo simbizi. Niba mugafata kakiri kazima mukakohereza, ibyo simbizi. Mwebwe intambara nimuyitangize aho ngaho Sud Kivu, mwerekeze Nord Kivu, musange Ntaganda, force zose muhurire muri Nord Kivu. Ikibazo cyahabaye rero muri wa mwanya ibintu bikimeze gutyo, i Kigali havamo bamwe bafata record bakoze ya video mu nama barimo bakora yo gucreatinga M23, bayoherereza Masunzu i Bukavu. Masunzu arayifata ajya kuyereka Kabila i Kinshasa. M23 ivuka kera UN yararecordinze hamwe na video y'inama yabereye i Kigali, yageze kwa Kabila baranayitanga muri UN. Ibintu biramenyekana noneho mbere yuko abari biriya bice bya Fizi na Baraka barasa berekeza Uvira bakaza berekeza za Bukavu. Noneho intelligence ya Congo irabimenya, iteguza makanika, ndabyibuka wari umunsi w'icyumweru, iteguza makanika babinyuza muri Masunzu, ahamagara makanika bamwoherereza force yifuza, agenda nk'ugiye Uvira naho agiye kurasa Bernard. Naho ukuntu bimeze, force zari muri biriya bice uhereye Fizi Baraka zari kuza zikivanga na force za Bernard wari uri Uvira, noneho zikaza zirasa zihuta zisanga Makenga wari kuba watangije intambara muri Bukavu. None ikibazo cyahabaye rero, makanika kubera Makenga yanze ko bumvikana kuri icyo kintu cyo kuvuga ngo bazarese berekeza Uvira bavaneho M23 yo muri Sud no muri Nord, noneho makanika ajoininga Masunzu na government, niko kwerekeza kujya kurasa Bernard Uvira. Ageze rero Uvira arasa Bernard, amaze kurasa Bernard amurasa ziriya force zavuye Fizi zavuye Baraka zitaragera muri ville ya Uvira, noneho bagera muri camp ya Uvira. Kera Bernard yarashwe, hariyo force za government zihari, ari makaniko hari na force ziwe n'izindi force za Masunzu. Noneho bahita bagwa gitumo, nibwo kurwana bahunga burira imisozi. Bernard baramukatinga baramufata n'ubu nyine tuvugana arafunzwe i Kinshasa. Kari agahungu k'agasirikare k'agasuzuguro, umurashi uteye ubwoba. Noneho Makenga rero ahita agira ubwoba bwo gutangiza intambara muri Bukavu, ahita yicara aratuza. Icyo gihe rero Ntaganda ahita atangiza intambara muri Nord Kivu, iwe yarapasuwa n'aba Zimurinda n'aba Innocent Kahima n'aba Douglas Kiroko n'aba Runiga, iwe bahita bapasuwa batangiza intambara iwabo iriya muri Nord Kivu. Urumva yari M23 imwe, ariko imwe iba ibarizwa muri South Kivu, indi muri North Kivu. Objective ari ukuntu bose bazahurira muri North Kivu, ariko icyabyishe ni uko umugambi wapfubiyemo muri South Kivu. Noneho Makenga asigara muri South Kivu, na za force zindi zigira ubwoba bwo kuvuga ngo bapasuye, kuko kera mission yari yapfuye. Ibyari byateguwe biba birapfuye. Ibyakurikiyeho ba Saddam barahigwa kuko ntibabashaga kugera muri Uvira, bafata imisozi yerekeza za Minembwe. Nyuma y'iminsi ngahe baba barafashwe barafunzwe. Amani Leo ugize urebe niyo yari ifite Amani Leo urebye niyo yari ifite imbaraga zose. Yari ifite ba Bosco Ntaganda, yari ifite ba Makenga, yari ifite ba Lieutenant Colonel Kazarama, yari ifite barya abantu ba Patrick Bosco. Urumva yari ifite force hafi ya zose zihagije. Urumva Amani Leo niko yari igenze, ugasanga ibintu by'amasekiteri amenshi nibo bayafite, ama regiment menshi nibo bayafite, ama battalion menshi nibo bayafite, kuko za force zari zaravuye muri CNDP ni nyinshi, baragiye bazideployinga ahantu hatandukanye kugira ngo bakwirakwire hose. Noneho Makenga abura ukuntu abigenza, niko kuguma i Bukavu. Kabila araza akoresha inama muri Nord Kivu, abasirikare bose baritabira, na Makenga aritabira. Kabila arabatutse ati nta soni mwebwe murarema umutwe w'ishyamba nibyo nabakoreye. Kabila aravuze hari kuri Goma mu mwaka wa 2012 nko mu kwezi kwa gatanu gutyo, arabatutse ahita avuga ati nkawe Makenga urimo urajijisha wicaye aho ngaho ngo menye ngo turi kumwe, ati niba gukingurira imiryango ugenda usange Bosco. Nyuma yaho yahise asohoka asubira i Bukavu. Nyuma y'iminsi mike akavura karaye kagwa, kubera yaratuye iruhande rw'u Rwanda, ahita afata ubwato aca mu ruhande rw'u Rwanda hamwe na force ziwe, babakubita mu makamyo babanyuza Gisenyi, baca mu Birunga basanga Bosco. Ubwo ariko umugambi urapfuba, bituma benshi bari bashoboye mu gihe cya CNDP batabasha ngo bajoininge, kuko ibintu byari byapfuye. Umuntu nka Innocent Gahizi ahita yigumira muri zone ziwe. Icyo Kabila yahise akora, yahise amuhamagara Kinshasa amugira general. Umuntu nka Innocent Kabundi wari i Bukavu abonye Makenga agiye, aravuga ati ibi bintu ukuntu twabipanze siko bimeze. Bahita bamuhamagara Kinshasa bamugira general. Abitwa Bamunyakazi bahita bamufata bamwohereza Equateur. Nyuma y'iminsi ingahe bamwohereza Kinshasa bamugira general. So kugira ngo Kabila arishe imitima bariya bagiye muri M23, ahita afata bariya batandatu basigaye abagira general, kugira ngo arishe imitima bagiye muri M23 basigare barimo barakubitika. Noneho intambara imaze gukomera, u Rwanda ruhura na pressure nyinshi cyane. Hariho evidence nyinshi zigaragaza yuko aribo barimo barabitekinika, ko aribo babikoze. Pressure yari nyinshi cyane ku rwego rwose, ariko nabo ikintu cyarimo kiba barimo babikuramo amafaranga menshi pe. Hambukaga amatoni n'amatoni ya korta, hambukaga amabuye ateye ubwoba, ku buryo umwaka wa 2012 bavugaga ko amafaranga yavuye mu mabuye yinjiye mu Rwanda agera hafi kuri miliyari y'amadolari. Muri 2013 nuko nguko ewana, cyagihe wabonye twafashe Goma, twatwaye umutungo wa Goma kugera kuri za morgue, kugeza kuri morgue bashyiramo abapfuye, twarazifashe tuzambutsa mu Rwanda. Goma twayisize nta n'urukweto tubasigiye. Noneho rero intambara imaze kurangira, abazungu bashatse gufatira u Rwanda ambargo. Noneho haba ikibazo, baravuga bati nuwe munyamurenge dushobora kubona cyangwa se umututsi ushobora gusobanura ko iyi ntambara yari iya y'abakongomani n'abatutsi. Ninde muntu abazungu bakunda babikojeje bariya bari Kinshasa bati yashwi, bati ibintu mwagiyemo mwabipanze nabi, mugende mubisubiremo neza nibwo twabijyamo, naho ubundi byarapfuye ntaho twahera. None inzego z'umutekano z'u Rwanda nibwo kuzana igitekerezo cyo kuvuga ngo reka dukoreshe Paul Gitwaza uziranye n'abazungu benshi, uziranye n'abanyamerika n'abanyayisiraheli uzwi cyane, agenda asobanura ko kiriya kibazo cya M23 ari ikibazo cy'umututsi muri Congo. Babikojeje Gitwaza ati ibyo bintu sinabikora, nimushaka mu nyice, ariko ibyo bintu sinabikora. Sinshobora kuvanga itorero ngo ndivange na politike. Ibyo bintu igihe mwabiteguye sinari mpari, kumbwira none ngo ngende ku maradiyo, ngende nzenguruka muri Amerika, hariya nazengurukaga mvuga ubutumwa, ngende mvuga ngo M23 ni ishyaka rirwanira akarengane k'abatutsi muri Congo. Ati ibyo sinabikora. Baramubwira bati niba ari uko nguko rero wibagirwe, urahura n'ibibazo hano mu Rwanda. Ati u Rwanda si cyo gihugu cyonyine, ajya i Burundi, bati guhungira i Burundi ni nko guhungira inzoka mu kigunda. I Burundi basa nk'abahamwirukanye, ajya Bukavu naho birananirana, niko kujya muri Amerika. N'ubu ngubu ntibakubeshye, ubu nyine asubira muri Afurika kubera kariya kantu ngo Afurika haguruka. Naho ubundi ibintu bamupropozaga igihe kizagera ingoma ya FPR itakiriho, ibintu abishyire hanze atari nge ubimuvugiye. Mushiki wabo ntako atagize ngo bemeze abatutsi bafite amafaranga muri Congo gusobanura ko ari ikibazo cy'abatutsi. Batereka da ibintu mwabipanze nabi, mugende mupange ibindi, wenda ibyo ngibyo twabijyamo. So mu ncamake nuko ibya M23 byagenze. Ntubona ubu turimo turavugana hariho ikibazo kinini cyane leta y'u Rwanda itarabasha gukemura. Hariho M23 bitirira ngo ni M23 y'abahungiye muri Uganda, hakaba n'indi M23 bitirira ngo yahungiye mu Rwanda. Iyo M23 yahungiye mu Rwanda, leta y'u Rwanda irimo irakoraboratinga na Congo ngo basubireyo mu mahoro, bababarire babasubizeyo mu mahoro. Ariko iyi M23 yindi yahungiye mu Bugande yo irarindiriye. Erega reka nkubwire, ntugire ngo ibi bintu biba hariya mu Rwanda bizwi n'abantu benshi. Ikibazo cya M23 usanga kizwi n'abantu 2 cyangwa 3, wasanga n'uriya Nyamvumba atakizi. Icyo nshaka kuvuga ni iki, ujye uza urebe ukuntu ibintu bimeze. Nk'ejo bundi umuntu yarambwiye ngo Zimurinda na Baudouin barimo baragenda Congo bagerageza kurecruiting abana mu nkambi, ariko babuze abana babakurikira. Bya bintu byo gushyushya imitwe abana ngo babakurikire ntibigishoboka. Noneho hari alternative imwe isigaye, aba basirikare ba M23 bagiye gukorera muri undercover muri Congo mu izina ry'u Rwanda. Noneho ubu u Rwanda ifite kubera ukuntu imaze kugirana umubano mwiza na Congo, yari itegereje kubasubizayo. Mu nama baherutse gukora mu gihe bizizaga isabukuru y'imyaka 25, bemeje ko bashaka kubasubizayo mu mahoro, n'imfungwa zimwe bazifungure kandi babe integrated mu gisirikare, amakosa bakoze bayababarirwe. Aho niho u Rwanda rwari rugeze kubera umubano rufitanye na Congo. None ikibazo cyahabaye, ibintu byose Tshisekedi yari yarabemereye yarabihagaritse, ariko abihagarika forces zimwe ziri muri Nord Kivu, kandi ntabwo nabo bamwemerera gusubirayo. Ikibazo nuko forces zabo na nkeya ziri muri Sud Kivu zidashobora kwigaragaza, kuko zari kwigaragaza igihe zari kongerwa zikaba nyinshi, bikaba official nk'uko yari yarabemereye. Tshisekedi hari amagambo leta y'u Rwanda yagiye imubwira akijyaho, noneho haza abandi barimo Uganda na Angola n'Abafaransa n'abandi barayavuguruza, bituma Tshisekedi yisubiraho. Kuri bo ntabwo bakizeye ko gahunda yo kwambuka igikomeje, kandi icyo ni ikibazo kuri bo. Ngibyo rero bakunze ba Radio Itahuka, ibyo uyu mukunzi wa Radio Itahuka yashatse ko tubagezaho, ibiri muri iyi nkuru tumaze kubasomera ni ibitekerezo bye, niwe ushobora gusobanura uko ibi bintu, izi information yazigezeho, ariko yifuje ko twazisangiza abakunzi ba Radio Itahuka. Ntidushidikanya ko wenda hari abandi bazaboneka bakaba bakuzuza ibitekerezo yatanze muri iyi nkuru, cyangwa se bakaba bagira n'ibyo banyomozamo. nicyo radiyo Itahuka ibereyeho, iha urubuga abantu bose bakisanzura. Murakoze rero, mwari kumwe na Axel Karinijabo, Imana ibahe umugisha.